Hello and welcome to Your United Way, a show that's all about connecting you to your community. I'm Ashley Wright, Executive Director for the United Way and your host for today's show. I'm really excited about our guest today because I think you all are really going to help the community understand a very tangible way to get involved in the community. So let me introduce our guest. Monique Zuber is with the United Way and Brandy Harless is with St. Nicholas Clinic. Thank you both for being here today.
Thank you.
Now, we are getting ready to kick off our annual campaign, which will begin in September, and then this is the fourth year that we have done that by having Project United. And Monique, I know you're coordinating that for the United Way, so why don't you tell our viewers a little bit about what Project United is?
Project United, this is our fourth annual Project United, as you said, and it's a community-wide day of service where teams from businesses or just individuals, we have a team from WKCTC, from all over our community come together and they get assigned a project at one of our partner agencies, one of them being St. Nicholas Clinic, and they get to do a project that otherwise these agencies may not have the opportunity to complete. So this year we're hoping to have about 300 people to complete at least 20 projects at about 20 agencies.
Wow, so the program has really grown over the years. How many did we have the first year?
The first year I think we had about 150 volunteers. The second year it was about 200. Last year we had 275. So we're hoping to hit that 300 mark for this year.
And why do you think this community-wide day of service has really grown and been so successful?
I think it gives community members a chance to really come together and not only give back to their community, but to see what our partner agencies, what kind of good work they're doing. Really is a good education for them. It's a way for them to get big projects done that, like I said, otherwise they can't get done. So I think that's a good feeling for our community.
So what are some examples of projects that people might be doing this year?
We have all different projects. We have painting projects. Some of our agencies, they want to spend all of their time directly with their clients. So some things may go by the wayside, whether it's painting or landscaping. We have some bigger projects. Salvation Army, sometimes those donation piles can pile up because they're spending their time directly with those clients. So separating some of those donations, community gardens for some of our places, and Brandy can talk a little bit about in a few minutes about what they're going to do at St. Nicholas Clinic with the house that they have.
Okay, Brandy, why don't we jump in and tell us a little bit. First, give our viewers a little bit of an overview of St. Nicholas Clinic.
Great. St. Nicholas Family Clinic is the free health clinic in town, and we see working uninsured individuals up to 200% of the federal poverty line. So for a family of 4, for example, you can make up to $44,000 a year and still be qualified for services there.
And so how many clients do you see throughout the year?
We see about 500 individual unique patients a year. The majority of our patients are suffering from chronic illnesses, so we end up seeing them about 5 to 6 times a year.
And when you talk about chronic illnesses, what are some exampple of that?
Diabetes, hypertension, asthma, those types of things.
And so just to provide a little bit of information for our viewers, if one person in the family is working, then anybody in the family is eligible, is that
Absolutely,
correct?
yes. As long as you are claiming them on your tax return, anyone that's claimed on your tax return can be eligible for services.
And I know you all utilize volunteers all the time, don't you? Can you talk a little bit about what your volunteers do as far as medical staff currently?
Absolutely. We basically have medical staff from CMAs all the way up to physicians. We're always in need of someone with technical skills to help us make consult appointments. We have to make many phone calls to many providers around the community trying to get our patients in to see a specialist. We also have volunteers who help out with vital signs on nights of clinic. We are always in need of volunteers, but we also have some places for people without the medical technical skills, such as some clerical skills, so checking patients in and checking patients out or filing charts, things like that. So we're always in need of more volunteers, absolutely.
So can you talk a little bit about what Project United allows St. Nicholas to do?
Yeah. Well, as most people know, we recently renovated our clinic, which was great, and we kind of did our own version of Project United because the community really came together and helped us do that. But in the process, the house next door to the clinic used to be a thrift store, as many people know also, and we closed it down about 1.5 years ago because it wasn't making enough money and it was just kind of draining our resources. So now we are wanting to use it as a chronic illness, diabetes, asthma, hypertension, education and support building. So currently we have some diabetes diabetes classes going on. We're starting asthma next month, and we're trying to get that house kind of ready for that those classes and support.
So I know you have some pictures of the before, of what the house looks like currently, and then we're looking forward to having you back on the show maybe next month so we can see the after of what our volunteers are able to do. But can you kind of walk us through some of these pictures that we're gonna look at right now?
Yes,
and
absolutely.
Help us see what this what's in the house currently.
Right, so obviously the house is a house. So there is a kitchen. This is the kitchen where the refrigerator was. We want to get this kitchen back up and running. We might not do this during Project United, but we are going to get the building ready to get everything back up in order. So as you can see, it's kind of turned into our storage unit, and we're wanting to clear all of this stuff out. So hopefully prior to Project United, we actually are going to do an inventory. So we're going to be posting, hopefully through your website and other places, a place where we can give away a lot of the stuff that we don't need anymore. This is a room that is almost finished, and we're going to need some help kind of getting it more organized, but this is a table that CSI donated to us to do some of our education here, and our diabetes support classes meet here at this table currently. So this is kind of a room that's already finished, as you can see. We're probably going to end up painting. All the walls are the same color, and so we kind of want to designate rooms for certain purposes. Sure. So we'll probably end up painting on Project United Day. And then you can just see a lot of the stuff from our clinic got thrown over there during our renovation. So a lot of this stuff we're going to give away. And we're really looking forward to that. This is a lot of our orthopedic supplies that have been donated over the years. We are going to use one of the rooms as a storage unit for a lot of our medical supplies that we don't use on a day-to-day basis, but oftentimes we'll find someone that needs it.
Now, you had mentioned that the kitchen in this current house does not have a stove, and what would you kind of dream of happening?
Yeah, well, I think that the ideal situation would be to create a kitchen where we could do some cooking classes out of and teach people who are pre-diabetic or who have diabetes how to cook for themselves and to kind of get their diabetes under control.
Why are these classes so important for people that are dealing with chronic illnesses?
Absolutely. Well, as you know, our nurse practitioner does the diagnosing and the treating in the patient room, but the time is limited in that room, in the patient room. And so we have diabetes educators. Edie Keeney is our diabetes educator now, which is excellent. And she spends 2 to 3 hours with our patients, teaching them about the lifestyle of how to live with diabetes, how to maintain it, how to get it under control, and how to educate your kids too. There's some prevention that goes on in those classes too.
So you already have the diabetes education classes going on, but you've talked about some other ones that you would love to see happening as well in this building. And how many people do you think can utilize these classes over the next year?
Well, if we do the asthma, we're starting asthma next month, and then we have diabetes now. Really, those classes last about 4 to 6 weeks whenever you do a full curriculum, and we have about 10 in each class now. So we're talking about 200 to 300 people who could potentially really gain some education from these.
Wow, that's wonderful. That is wonderful. And I would assume that the goal is not only just a healthier lifestyle for them, but driving down medical costs across the community when people are able to get those kind of health issues under control.
Yes, absolutely.
That's fabulous. So at this time, the location only allows for the one diabetes classroom. So Project United will hopefully allow the whole house to be utilized for these kind of classes.
Yes, and fabulous. We're also looking for other chronic illness educators who might be interested in helping out too. So we would love for someone to get in touch with us if they're certified in diabetes education. We could offer more classes for diabetes education. For asthma, for instance, hypertension, COPD, there are tons of them, and there are tons of specific certifications you can get for those education classes.
Now, are other people doing these kind of classes in the community? I mean, would the average person have access to them?
Diabetes is a very common one, so the health department does it, the hospitals have some classes, so those are very common. We decided to do it at the clinic because our patients are familiar with the clinic, and it gives us kind of continuity of care because Edie Keeney, our diabetes educator, talks with our nurse practitioner, and they go back and forth about what a patient needs and really targets the education sometimes.
You know, the thing that I love about projects like this is you can go in and in a half day at Project United, or we even have some full day projects that I'll let you talk a little bit about, Monique, this year. You can clean up, put paint on the walls, and you leave there and you feel great about it, but think about the long-term impact over the lives, hundreds of lives in our community just from a half day of service. I think that's amazing and really what Project United and the United Way is all about. So kind of in wrapping up, Monique, what does someone need to do if they're interested in volunteering?
If they're interested in volunteering specifically through Project United, we do have a registration form on our website. There's an individual registration tab and also a workplace or organization registration tab. And so you can go online, just fill that out. I'll get that email and I'll get back with you as soon as I can to let you know I received it. And about a week before the project, we will let you know, or before Project United, we'll let you know what your project is and be in communication that way.
So what if somebody has a special skill, say they are a carpenter or welder or something that might be of use in some of these projects? What can someone do to make sure they're utilizing those?
We do through the registration form online. There is tabs that you can mark if you have those types of special skills. You can also mark if you're available for half day. That's what we've traditionally done for Project United, but it was so successful last year that a lot of places wanted to do the whole day, so you can mark if you want to do the whole day. So we're really hoping to utilize those people with special skills and really offer a half day or a whole day. What kind of whole day projects are people going to be able to sign up for? Well, we have a couple of them that I think will probably take the whole day. Oscar Cross has a huge project. They have a gymnasium that needs a lot of work, and so we're going to be looking into that. And also at Farley Elementary School, we're going to partner with them this year for Reading Pals, so we invited them to be a part of Project United. And they have an outdoor classroom, 2 outdoor classrooms that need to be refurbished, and so that will probably take the whole day for them to do that as well. Let's say someone goes and participates in a half-day project but wants to stay engaged and maybe continue on to Saturday or into the next week. What could somebody do? Definitely just contact me, and we'll also have some forms the day of Project United, and I'll have your contact information, and we can set that up to where you can go back the next day and complete it, or if you want to be an ongoing volunteer, we can connect you with the right people. So if you're interested in doing this as a workplace, kind of, I know you mentioned it briefly, but kind of walk through what you probably need to do before going on and signing up. You can call me and talk to me about it, but what we ask you to do is kind of get an idea at your workplace of how many people you want to volunteer. If your team's going to be 5 people or 10 people, get an idea of how large your team will be, because that's one of the questions we'll ask, so that we can assign you to an appropriate project. So get a feel for that at your workplace or with your friends for how many people you're going to have, and then just sign up online. And if you want to participate but you're not able to do a lot of physical labor, what kind of options do people have for this? We have a couple of options. Some of our agencies need some clerical work done, and so they can do that. We also will be at the Paducah Day Nursery and they serve obviously a lot of children, and so you can do arts and crafts with them. And so there's a couple of different options if you aren't able to do any physical labor. And do people have to do this? If you're signing up as a team, are you guaranteed to all go to the same place, or what if people want to split up? What are the options for those kind of large groups? We try and keep everybody together. Last year we did for teams that were 20 or larger. I did kind of have to break some of those up, and we can talk about that. If you have the person who signs you up online is kind of your team leader, and myself and the team leader can talk through that and where we can place you if we need to keep you together or split you up. Well, I'm so excited about this 4th year and being able to kick off our annual campaign, which of course will help raise money for all of our partner agencies in the community this year, but I think also really bring together the community in service. And so, Brandy, thank you so much for being here and for the work that you do at St. Nicholas, and of course, Monique, always glad to have you here. We'll be right back with our next segment. Thank you for joining us. Hello and welcome back to Your United Way. Our next guest on the show today is Heidi Serheinrich. She's the Executive Director for Paducah Cooperative Ministries. Heidi, thank you so much for being here with me this afternoon.
Well, thank you for asking me. I'm glad to be here.
Can you tell me a little bit about Paducah Cooperative Ministries for our viewers that may not be familiar?
Sure. Paducah Cooperative Ministry, or PCM as we're commonly known, is a cooperative effort of area congregations that got together back as far as 1973 to coordinate efforts to respond to basic human needs in McCracken County. And so the churches, the congregations provide the resources and the Paducah Cooperative Ministry entity then distributes them, and in the very best way possible. And so it is a cooperative effort.
So what all do you do for the community? I mean, I know that's evolved a lot over the years,
Right,
but can you
right.
talk a little bit about what services you provide?
Sure. Our mission statement, first of all, is we seek to do God's work with human hands by responding to basic human needs and conditions in McCracken County. And so back in 1973, when that handful of churches got together, the first thing they started to respond to was hunger. And so a food pantry was established and run by volunteers. And I think that's the thing that we're most known for, is the food pantry. But since that time, in addition to hunger, other basic human needs include homelessness and housing issues, the prevention of homelessness. And so we have added, back in 1990, a homeless shelter to our programs and services. We have added an emergency assistance fund that really is just another way of saying homeless prevention in many ways, because we help folks with utility disconnection notices, rent eviction notices, and other urgent needs like prescription medications or stranded traveler assistance, just somebody who's in a very urgent situation that we can respond to. Those were the three programs that we are best known for, and since that time we've added a lot of other programs and services going back to basic needs and conditions in McCracken County.
You know, we started talking at the United Way with Paducah Cooperative Ministry several years ago about kind of a vision that you all had,
Right.
Which was called Fresh Start.
Right.
And we are so excited that this is actually the first year that the United Way has been able to financially support this effort, because you've really gotten it off the ground in the
Right.
last year. So can you give a little bit of an overview of what Fresh Start is?
Sure. This is such an exciting program, and it really came about in sort of a God way. One of my staff members, Karen Burton, had come to me, and she was doing jail ministry with her church, and she said, I keep meeting with these women, and they keep saying they have nowhere to go when they get out. They don't know where they're going to go. They don't have a safe place. At that same time, I became aware of something the city had announced. A couple of military properties in McCracken County were closing, and they were preparing to build a new site out by the airport. Well, there's a federal law that mandates how those properties are to be handled, and they have to make announcement to the community, and they have to address homeless service providers as part of that. And so we went out, we took a look at a property at the end of North 12th Street, just a little building that had been used as a medical detachment for Army Reserve. And that conversation with Karen kept coming back to my mind. And I just could see that this would be a perfect place for that. And they came together, the timing seemed incredibly perfect for that. And so PCM put together a proposal, submitted it as to we would create a transitional housing program for women that were coming out of jail that had nowhere to go. That was an incredibly long process, Ashley. That started in 2006.
Wow.
And we presented it to the city commissioners who were charged with making the decision on that. And they approved it, and from there it had to go to Washington. This is federal, remember. So it had to go all the way up to Washington, had to go through the Department of Defense. They had to read the plan, the proposal that the city had made, and then they would pass it off to HUD. And if HUD approved it, then it would come back, and then the city would, implement the plan. Well, we had a presidential election in the middle of all of that, so it took a very long time. And then when it was approved, it actually, the site out at the airport that folks were going to move to took forever. So it tried our patience a little bit, and we got a little bit frustrated. We want to do this. We think this is important. We think it's needed, but this is taking forever. What can we do in the meantime that makes an impact, that if our goal is to reduce recidivism and help people restart their lives, what can we do?
Yeah.
And we realized that we could go ahead and go into the jail and begin working with the women pre-release. And that would help us to establish a track record. It would help us to talk to the women to say, this is what we're thinking of doing. Does this make sense? Is this needed? And actually have them help us with the project. So we began a program called Breaking Barriers in the McCracken County Jail. And this is a program, you've heard me talk about it before, but it was developed specifically for use in correctional facilities. With women, it talks about the process of change and how you can recognize the ruts you've gotten into and the habitual ways of responding and realize there are actually other choices. You actually can do other things. Anyway, it's a neat curriculum. We weren't sure how it would be received, and the women were so excited about it. We were just blown away by the enthusiasm. So that got launched, and we're still doing that. That was 2 years ago that we started that. And we meet every Monday at noon with a small group of women. We go through the curriculum. When we complete it, we start another cycle. But that led us to the next part, which was the fact that once they were released, if they didn't have an adequate support system, most likely they were going to return. That support system on the outside was key.
I've heard you tell this story before, and I think it's so poignant considering the Fresh Start program. Can you talk a little bit about how often women go back and forth into jail and your experience with that?
We knew it was large. We knew it was a large number, but we didn't know how large it was in our community. So we started a new group of ladies at the jail, and one of the questions I asked was, there's 16 of you here. For how many of you is this the first time you've ever been behind bars? 2 women out of 16 raised their hand. It was their first time. And I hadn't expected that. I thought maybe half.
Yeah.
I said, okay, so of all of you who have been here before, how many of you expected to come back? And, of course, not a single woman raised their hands, and as we talk to them and we work through them, they all have goals of resuming their lives, of doing things differently, of never coming back, never getting into trouble. It's just that it's a lot harder than it sounds.
Absolutely. With the United Way's Impact Poverty Task Force, a lot of what we looked at was what causes people to stay in generational poverty, those cycles. Right. And I think similarly to what you're talking about, it's so often the lack of support, positive role models, positive mentors, people who can help them see that there's something different than what they've always known.
Yeah, you're exactly right. In the Bridges Out of Poverty, that was one of the things that they discovered in their research, that it doesn't matter how smart you are, how strong you are, how much this you have, how much that you have. The most significant factor is what kind of support you have.
Yeah.
And so that's where you start.
So briefly, can you talk about what Fresh Start is? So they finish Breaking Barriers, they walk out the door.
Right.
What happens with Fresh Start?
Well, Fresh Start is basically 3 components. We've got the pre-release, the Breaking Barriers curriculum that we do. We're just about to finish up the transition house finally and get ready to make it residential. The piece in the middle is where they walk out and hit the sidewalk. And what we learned from the women we were working with pre-release is that they become a totally different person when they hit that sidewalk. They become completely overwhelmed. All the thoughts and plans that they developed while they were in jail evaporate. Fear sets in, and thinking stops. And they just start acting automatically, habitually, the same old ways, because they know how to do that.
Yeah.
And so we realize that's where we've got to go next. And we've got to be on that sidewalk and waiting for them when they step out the door. It's easy to get overwhelmed and think, I just can't do it. So our goal is with a program of mentorship, which we call MOACHs, by the way. Combination mentor and coach, you have a MOACH.
Okay.
And it actually is an acronym for meeting one another with compassionate hearts. So your MOACH is waiting for you outside on the sidewalk, and your MOACH will have met with you in the jail and developed with you an action plan of your most basic needs. We had a woman who was released a couple weeks ago in her pajamas because that's what she was arrested in. We hear stories of women being released in February in cutoffs and flip-flops and a tank top because they were arrested in July. So Clothing obviously is an important need. They want to feel like they fit into society again. If they don't feel like they fit in, they're not going to go anywhere at
Sure.
that point. It's just going to stop. Lots of times they don't have identification. Got to have that. Sometimes they need medication, whether it's high blood pressure medicine or whatever. Got to get that going.
So really, just basically helping them.
Transportation. They don't even know how they're going to get to where they're staying
Sure.
sometimes, or where they're going to stay. So it's the action plan.
So we're just as we're winding up here, if someone wants to be a moach, what do they need to do?
They need to get in touch with us, and we will talk them through the program.
Okay.
And just explain the ins and outs of it. And then we're just about to launch the first training of the first group of moaches, and that'll be later this month, and it will be an intensive training. We want our moaches to have a good understanding of the psychology of a woman who has been through this repeated cycle, to have a clear understanding of what her role is, to have a clear understanding of where the resources are.
Mm-hmm.
A moach is not there to solve problems. A moach is there to give support so the woman can find solutions for herself.
So what is your office number, or how is the best way for them to reach PCM if they're interested in being involved?
We would like for them to give us a call at 442-6795. They can ask for Heidi, or they can ask for Anna Shelton. And Anna is the coordinator of what we call the First Day Out program, and that is the mentoring program that we've been speaking about, and that is the component that you guys are funding for us this year.
Well, we are so thrilled to be a part of what I think is a huge issue in this community, and are so grateful that you all have really stepped up to the plate and seen this as an issue, and I think had the patience to make sure that this is something that's actually going to be a reality in our community. And so we're so grateful for the work that you do. I'm excited to have you as a United Way partner agency, and look forward to really hearing about how these lives have been changed in the future.
I think it's going to be exciting. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us for another edition of Your United Way. Look forward to seeing you back here at our next episode.